So, welcome to this special ChaiTime episode where we have some absolutely fantastic panelists that have joined us, and a global group of panelists, I would say, today from San Diego and then right across the UK to talk around the Kickstarter Award. And the Kickstarter Award is something that o2h has been delivering to early stage startups, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a second. But first of all, I just wanted to really thank the panelists for spending the time for the next 45 minutes to talk about what they're doing, their startups, and where they plan to go to in the future. So this is a special week for me, as I've been kicked out of the office actually because there's a bit of noise. So I am doing this ChaiTime from home today. They are putting up things around the garden at the office for my special birthday. It's a big one. And so I'm having it at the office grounds over the weekend. So it's going to be sort of fairly noisy and large. I thought it's a safer place to do it than at home. So I'm kind of excited and thrilled to have you guys here on this special week for me. So straight into the ChaiTime, what we're doing. And by the way, thank you, Vid, for wearing your T-shirt. So we have these Kickstarter T-shirts that we've sent to all the award winners, which are around us today. Some of them have got them, some of them haven't yet, but we will be sending these around to all of you if you haven't received them. But the o2h Kickstarter Award is something that we started around 9 months ago. And essentially, o2h, the group, has been developing this ecosystem where we've been investing into startups, and we have a contract research organization which helps deliver chemistry for these startups and biology, so a full integrated drug discovery capability in the UK and India. And we wanted to find a smart way of sort of connecting and those ecosystems. And we love working with companies in the very early days, both from the venture side, but also from the CRO side. We can help and support in the early days as they grow. We can grow with them, and we really enjoy that journey. Generally enjoy that journey of sort of from pre-seed really up to when they're up to Series A. So that's kind of the bit that we love working with those early stage startups for. It's a win for us as well. As they grow and they become larger companies, obviously we can grow with them, and it's good for business as well. So we came up with this Kickstarter award. So we launched it first just generally actually, and the idea behind it is we offer very, very low cost chemistry for award winners. So we ask people to apply for this award if we think they are a company that is venture funded or could be venture funded in the near future, and it's in small molecule therapeutics, because that's where the main engine of the contract research organization sits. Then they're eligible for a Kickstarter award, and we had actually quite a lot of applications globally. And the idea behind them is we give them a bit of a boost of chemistry in the early days, hopefully help them to hit certain milestones, which could allow them to receive further funding awards in the future. So that's very simplistic, and for a very sort of a nominal amount of cash, they're able to access a fairly significant amount of chemistry. And some of those chemists are o2h trainees, and then we put them on the project. And for us, it's a win because it enables us to train them into fully fledged medicinal chemists moving forward as well. So the whole thing would just work really well. And we launched it first in just one generally, and obviously some of the winners are here from that today. But then we launched it in Australia, and we have 3 winners announced for the Australian award. It's Israel, and we have a shortlisted number of companies now. We'll be awarding 3 awards in the near future. And the new iteration of this, which is sort of, you'll hear it first here, is that we decided to create golden partners or venture partners, or they could be technology transfer officers, anyone who's really in that startup biotech ecosystem where they're getting those early stage companies off the ground. And we're going to allow those golden partners, whether they're venture capital companies or technology transfers or even charities, we're going to allocate them sort of a golden partnership award, and which will allow them to fast track any one of their startups for a golden ticket over the next 48 months or so. So that's how we're going to iterate it, and we'll be signing up venture capitalists and or other technology transfer groups through our website in the near future. So reach out to us via email, or you should see something through social media if you fit that criteria. But while jumping straight into the panelists, I've got this five amazing award winners. I was counting myself there, but no, 5 amazing award winners here today, from sunny San Diego to sunny Cambridge, as it were, today. Actually, cloudy San Diego and sunny Cambridge, and right across the country in Kent and others as well. So I'll just give the panelists a chance to introduce themselves, and I'm going to go straight to Beth first because she's in my top left-hand corner. Beth from San Diego, tell us what you're doing.
Hi, so I'm Beth Hoffman. I'm founder and CEO of Origami Therapeutics. And not surprisingly, we work on small molecules, but we're going after disease-modifying medicines for neurodegeneration. And what we do a little bit differently is, first, we're going with small molecules, so that's already a little bit different in the neurodegeneration space. But we're going after the direct cause, the underlying cause of disease, and we're trying to fix the proteins that are mutated and cause disease. So that's where we are. And my background, I'm a scientist by training, and have worked in the industry at a number of different places for about 25 years.
That's perfect. That's great. So, Jeanette?
Yeah, hello. I'm the CEO of 5 Alarm Bio, and we're working in the aging area, and we're looking at a biological pathway that's involved in the aging process. And we have a lead molecule that we are looking at chemistry around to do lead optimization at the moment. And those molecules, we expect they'll be very useful for treating diseases of the aging. So such as neurological diseases, muscle wasting, and various other diseases that affect the elderly. That's
great, Jeanette. Thank you. Jason?
Hi. So I'm Jason Rutz. I'm CEO and one of the founders of Azodyne, and we have a small molecule approach to modifying tRNA, in particular specific tRNA in certain cells. And we've been utilizing this approach to generate new treatments for autoimmune disease, which we see as an area that's really neglected at the moment.
That's great. Thank you, Jason. And Neil?
Hi, thank you, Sonil. So I'm Neil Benson. I'm the CEO of Sevenless Therapeutics. We're a pain company. We're trying to develop novel small molecule inhibitors that are non-opioids for chronic pain. We have a target that we're very excited about, has clinical, genetic, and pharmacological validation. And yeah, we're hoping to be in the clinic in the next 18 months or so.
That's great. Thank you. Vid?
Hi, I'm Vid Stoyevich. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Quano. We're a tech bio company that's focusing on designing, again, small molecules for hard-to-drug enzyme targets. We're doing this using a combination of simulation technologies that involve molecular and quantum simulations together with AI to help with this kind of design process. And our aim is to really kind of unlock the genome in the enzyme space to kind of really, the ambition is to show that these new technologies can be applied to targets that are beyond the reach of currently available technologies.
Thank you, Vid. That's great. So I'm just going to really talk a little bit about sort of the early part of your research program, really, and how the Kickstarter award has been supportive or helpful, and what you hope to achieve, what you have achieved. Some of you are already, partway through that with the data that you're generating, and then how hopefully what data that would be, and how you hope to raise further funding on the back of it or to progress your company. So just really about the sort of the plan that you're undertaking and what milestones you hope to hit. So I'll go with Jason first.
So I think at the point we started the company, we'd identified a new target, we'd identified this new pathway, we knew it had to be, have a utility. And we've since sort of discovered that by modifying tRNA, we can selectively alter the proportions of Tregs in the bodies. And we've translated that to efficacy in sort of autoimmune disease and safety. We're at this stage where we're sort of confirming our mode of action, and then we'll look to take a lead compound into preclinical regulatory studies, leading to the clinic, be it via pharma collaboration, via a sort of Series A. In terms of what we've been doing with the Kickstarter project, though, when we sort of came into this, we had we had 3 chemical series, and there's possibly a candidate in there. But we did a lot of that chemistry before we had this much more detailed sort of pathway understanding. And I think what we've really been able to do in this sort of Kickstarter is that, firstly, we've been able to sort of help confirm how molecules have an effect. We know they're substrates for a certain enzyme. We know that puts them into tRNA, but how do all those different molecules affect the structure of tRNA, and that leads to that change between one codon and another and how the ribosome reads it. And being able to have that extra chemistry has really helped us there. I think the second thing is that every project I've been involved in has gone wrong for an unforeseen reason. The obvious problems you sort out ahead of time. And when you want to sort a project out, you need a bit of structural diversity in your chemistry. Hopefully something different enough that your project, it won't suffer from the faults that another compound has. And so this is something the project has really brought for us. It's been, we've got some very diverse molecules. And I think with it as well, we've been able to look at the molecules we had previously, identify where we had a narrowness, like for instance, the PK window for all of our molecules is relatively narrow. And we could develop molecules with very different properties. But perhaps also as a sort of a much bigger win, we've been able to sort of explore some slightly more left field ideas, and I've even demonstrated with the KickFinder that some of the compounds we've been able to make are now actually useful in a very different disease indication, and that properly moves us on as a company. That's a huge step that we wouldn't be able to take without this.
That's great. And in terms of your funding landscape, where are you back from today, if you're able to say, and what are your funding plans moving forward on the back of this sort of data that you've been able to generate?
So for us at the moment, we've raised just under 2 million via several small rounds. This is a project that we have bootstrapped, and I think we're going to be at a crossroads sort of fairly soon. We'll sort of understand the mode of action properly, and we'll be at a place where I think either we raise money to take a lead molecule into the sort of regulatory studies to allow this molecule, MTA, IND, phase 1. We do that as a sort of big Series A with a VC, or we look to go partner with pharma. And I think as we sort of bottom out on the mode of action over the next couple of months, we'll probably head more to one side or the other.
Do you see the working out the MOA, the mode of action, as critical to either attracting a venture or to a pharma collaboration? Do you think you need to have that resolved, or do you think there's options to advance your program on the phenotypic data that you see?
I think it's really helpful to understand the mode of action. I think when you've got the mode of action, you can sort of take that data set and you can sort of really apply it to the sort of the program that's going to give the most sort of differentiated benefit for patients. I mean, we're all sort of biotechs. We have a relatively small funding window. I'm not saying it's like one shot, but it's closer to that. You don't have the big resources that a major pharma company has to constantly reiterate. You want to go in with the best chance, the most informed perspective. And so to me, yeah, I think it's a really crucial thing that the more you understand about the MOA, with the best compound to fit that mode of action and everything you understand, the best chance of success. It's all about the foundation for me personally. And
what kind of, I mean, if people are watching this, what kind of VCs are you looking to reach out to, or what kind of scale or quantum of cash do you think you might want to raise for your A round? Do you have an idea yet? You don't have to say if you haven't prepped it. But...
So we're probably not at the stage yet where we've reached out to a lot of VCs. I think in the current
stealth mode, you've been in stealth mode. That's...
a little bit, yeah. But I think in the current investment arena, if you're a VC with money, we like you. It's tough to raise money at the moment. So yeah, in that respect, we're probably not hugely.
No, but I think that it is tough. But I think we are seeing projects which really understand the commercial need with a clear path to the clinic. They are definitely in scope for funding, and there is money out there for high quality science, really, but with a commercial viewpoint to it, and entrepreneurs or scientists that understand that, I think, are raising money. So, but yeah, no, it is tough without a doubt. So Neil, tell us a little bit about the Kickstarter, how it's supported you, and where do you think you might want to go on from here next?
Sure.
And tell us about your high hips. We had a bit of pre chai time banter. I was talking about swimming, and I heard that you're a good swimmer. So I said you must have high hips then, because that's what I've been told I need to do to swim faster, is have high hips.
All right. Yeah, a long time ago when I was young, I used to swim a bit. Yeah, stay as flat as you can. That's the best advice.
That's the technique. Okay, right.
Don't think. Yeah.
Now on to sevenless.
Yeah. So the Kickstarter. So yeah, we've had a fantastic journey. We started our chemistry with computational chemistry approach, and from that, a number of hit series were identified very successfully, and really the job was to convert those into useful leads and then into molecules that could be candidates to take into the clinic. So I think the Kickstarter was extremely valuable in that process. I think we went from 4 chemists to, I think, 10, and there was a kind of leap forward in terms of productivity, and it gave us the chance to look at lots of more series than perhaps we would have been able to, and we very quickly moved from hits into leads, within months. So I should say I'm a bit of a long veteran in the industry. I've worked at SmithKline Beecham, Pfizer over the years, and many other companies, and seen lots of hit to lead programs, and this one really moved forward quickly once we'd engaged the Kickstarter. So very happy with it. The other point I'd make is we're a very lean operation. Everyone's very busy, and I think communication and effective communication is really clear. Obviously, quite a lot of complex things going on, complex decisions needed to be made, interactions, and so on. And the communication with O2h has been fantastic in that regard. It's clear, but it isn't over the top. It's just enough, so it's kind of kept to a minimum. So I think that's worked very well from our perspective.
In terms of your funding landscape, I know that you have the BII, as an institution that has supported you. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the BII, how they've helped you, and where your funding plans are going to go on from here.
Sure. So the BII, the foundation based in Copenhagen, we were fortunate enough to win some funding under the Creation House program to start our chemistry work. Been a fantastic experience. They've from our point of view, they've been very good to work with, very supportive, and yeah, it's really given us a platform to start to build a company with some value. So,
and in terms of your sort of future funding plans, do you have those sort of ironed out yet, and what you plan to raise?
So our plan is to take the leads that I was talking about and select a candidate for first in human. So that's kind of our immediate horizon. So we can begin the clinical trial process. So we're hoping to have that all within the next 18 months as a stretch goal. Yeah, so we're looking for funding that will take us to a candidate, a molecule that's ready for phase 1. That's our next horizon.
Mm-hmm. So you have, because of the, I guess, the industry experience you have a very clear idea of what you need to do to get into the clinic, and you can put a fairly detailed plan around that. I think VCs will probably appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have
maybe the pharma partners as well. I presume, if you're talking to some of the big pharma as well. Yeah,
we have a huge amount of experience in the leadership team, many years in big pharma, Pfizer, as I said, SmithKline, Novartis, etc. And yeah, we have a plan, costed plan, very clear idea of what it will be in terms of Boston, what we need to do to get into the clinics.
Thanks, Neil. So over to Beth from cloudy San Diego.
We call it May Gray.
May Gray, San Diego. So
thanks.
yeah, tell
Sunil.
us a little about the Kickstarter and how it's helped you, supported you, if it has, and what your plans are moving forward.
Yeah, great. So let me just explain that we started from scratch. We had, basically an idea of what we wanted to try to do. And so we ran a high content screen, which gave us a number of hits, and really very
Beth, I should
exciting.
outline that this was self-funded by you really to start with, is that correct?
Yes.
So you
Yeah,
started this company, you left a very large organization to really create and develop some of your own ideas. And that, sorry, I wanted to get the backdrop. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I was VP of Discovery Biology at Vertex Pharmaceuticals and worked on the CFTR drugs, which was incredibly exciting. And it really gave me insight into how we might apply some of those learnings to neurodegeneration. And my background is largely in neuroscience as a whole. And so we basically just got started, and with the idea that we would go after what we considered low-hanging fruit, in this case, a monogenic disease called Huntington's disease, and basically do a the vision was to do a proof of concept there so that we could then apply the approach to other neurodegenerative diseases. And so we ran a screen, and found a number of compounds, and some of them happened to do exactly what we wanted to do. So at Origami, we really put biology first. And by that, I mean, we're looking to have the effect we want to see in patients. So in our case, we have a toxic protein that's made, and we want to get rid of it. And so we found some small molecules that happen to lower this mutant protein, mutant Huntington. And so much like Neil, having had background in the industry, the goal was to get as quickly as possible to a molecule that we could show sort of a PK/PD relationship. So in other words, that we could show our molecule, at least an early molecule, got into the brain and did what we needed it to do. And so that's what we started with. And we were incredibly lucky that some of the original hits and the analog by catalog gave us some compounds that we could do exactly that. And so having done that and feeling like we've partially de-risked the approach, what we knew was we needed two big things to make the molecules better. We wanted to see better potency, and we wanted to see better PK. And so this is really where O2h comes in. And we've really been able to make some great progress. So we see 5 to 10-fold improvement in potency. And so now we're really working our way through to see which of those might even have better PK. I'll explain that what the sort of idea of these protein degraders, ours is monovalent. It's not the sort of PROTAC kind of degrader. And as we're going, since our approach is quite different than many others, we've had to learn a lot about both the reagents that lots of people are using, but just also the cellular pathways. And so the new molecules we've been making have really helped us do that. And so why is this important? We have two things we're shooting for. One is a molecule that we can use to show disease modification in an animal model, but also because our approach was phenotypic, we want to understand our mechanism of action and identify the target. And so for that, that's where these new molecules that we're making, that O2h is making in collaboration with us, is really hitting the mark. And so we feel like we're on the road to really getting to those two big milestones as a result. And I want to reiterate something that Neil said, and what has blown me away, and my chemist, is, in fact, who is also an industry veteran, is the fantastic communication with the O2h team. It really is remarkable. And we've been able to move quickly and make fast decisions as a result of the frequent and very clear communication. So I think now you want to know where are we looking to. So I've kind of give you an idea of where we're headed. We think we can be at ready to go into man in about 2.5 years or so. So that's could be a tight timeline, but in the meantime, we're trying to raise a Series A. And so we've started talking to a number of different VCs. And so, as they say, the more the merrier.
I think we'll ask a question actually about the funding landscape, because I think it's an interesting time. You know, we're going on this, obviously, this economic journey globally, and so I think it'd be good to get some viewpoints of how people are finding the market. That'd be a good understanding for people listening as well, as to, you know, what startups are feeling or early stage companies are feeling as they're going out to try to collaborate or raise finance. But before we get there, Vid, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how the Kickstarter program has worked for you and your team, and you know, what your funding goals and plans are moving forward. And if there's anything you can announce on your funding, then go ahead. But if you can't, that's fine too, because I think make good progress.
Yes, on that last point, yeah, I'm afraid I can't announce things just yet, but like we are sort of in the middle of kind of finalizing a seed round that's kind of a few million, and the Kickstarter has been a huge component of helping us get kind of over the line with the investment. So it's contributed both scientifically in a big way and indeed in the kind of current kind of difficult market to get the investment to happen. I'd say on the scientific side, we essentially were, I mean, to kind of just take a step back, we're one of our key aims in this early stage of the company is to prove out that the technology that we're building actually works in the wet lab. And we did the first round of that, let's say, we kind of finalized that towards around the beginning of 2022. But we got
what you're doing is very novel, isn't it? You're doing quantum processing to understand, you know, transition state proteins and how they morph pre-ligand binding. And so, you know, that is something that's, you know, not many people in the world, I think, understand or are able to do, but that takes a lot of, I would say, computer brain power to be able to do that, and to transition that into a biotech company that can make real drugs is probably the biggest challenge. So I guess that's where the Kickstarter really supported, to actually generate some proper chemical matter around the technology. Is that?
Yes, exactly. We kind of go out, you know, essentially we're going out on a limb saying this new exciting technology of, you know, simulating the enzymes and accessing the transition state is going to bring about novel chemistry that's beyond the reach of traditional methods. But then we have to show that, and essentially we're kind of the first phase indicated that kind of this kind of phase that I mentioned, kind of that we achieved around the beginning of 2022. But then we needed to move to the next phase, and we didn't really have the funds ready to do that, and the market changed in, let's say, a negative direction for this kind of for these kinds of approaches. And the Kickstarter really massively helped us do that, starting. So I think we started around December, and we essentially moved from that early chemistry to what I would say are sort of validated hits, and we're moving toward validated leads on a target where we've in a space of a few short months kind of really demonstrated that the technology brings us to properly exciting compounds in new chemical space for one specific target. And we also then tested out the technology on a more challenging target, so we know where to go from that. And actually there was kind of a nice synergy between a grant that we won from Innovate UK and the Kickstarter, because it enabled us to start more quickly and to move along the grant pathway more quickly. So we it's kind of everything kind of conspired to be in our advantage over the past few months in that sense. And o2h was.
Yeah, I think you're sort of describing something that we see quite generally. If I just look across a number of startups, you know, there are a number of AI, machine learning, or quantum in your case, computationally driven models for designing and generating new either chemical matter or validating drug targets or such like. But at the end of the day, big pharma, who drive a lot of our industry, I mean, they need to sell drugs. So if we can, you know, use those technology platforms and actually show and demonstrate they can develop something novel, new, or validate in some shape or form in the wet lab, and then actually generate some value on the back of those platforms. And I think that gets more traction with investors than just having a technology platform alone. So I think that's why the Kickstarter award was probably awarded to you guys. We thought that that could support you on that journey. And I think more of the startups we're seeing they're now more of a hybrid between tech investors want to come in, but they want a biotech investor there. Biotech investors are happy with the tech investors coming in. So having that, dual approach almost is where I think some of these platform companies, which are AI, machine learning driven and or other, can really sort of make the progress that we all hope they would make in terms of designing and developing new therapeutics, new drugs to help patients. So I think that you're in that happy sweet spot really, where you have now a team of scientists and computer engineers enabling your platform.
Yeah, exactly. And I think kind of, I guess the sort of the bar has been raised over the past year in terms of kind of the level of proof points that's needed for certainly for investment. And this is, I mean, we were always focused on demonstrating that the technology works in the wet lab as soon as possible. So we're kind of, I think, doing the right thing anyway. But certainly the sort of the landscape changed. And I think that another way in which the landscape is changing right now, I would say, is that that there is, I almost feel, I could be wrong about this, but it almost feels like there's a little bit of hype cycle that has to do with these types of simulation driven technologies. So in other words, there was a hype cycle, I would say, in 2018 around AI. Now there's a somewhat of a hype cycle, I feel, emerging around simulations in the industry. But so with the kind of, I guess, again, help of this Kickstarter, we are all of a sudden in quite a good position in that we are at the forefront of that, but we're not just sort of a company with a technology promise. It's also deeply integrated with the wet lab, and that's.
Thanks, Vid. It's great. Jeanette, tell us a little bit about how the Kickstarter, how you work with the Kickstarter, and also on your future plans. I mean, you're in a very, very hot space. I mean, the whole anti-aging space is simmering, and even in a difficult market, I think it's still people like me who are getting older, happy to invest a couple of quid into things that might make you live healthier for longer. So so maybe Jeanette can give us a bit of backstory.
Yeah, so the aging space is really interesting. We're now finding ways of investigating the aging process and using the understanding of the biology to come up with new treatments for disease. So yeah, it's growing and expanding. And the start of the founders of this company, with William Baines being the scientific founder, hypothesized a pathway that was really important in the causes of aging of cells. So that hypothesis of the pathway, he then recognized and identified a molecule that you could call it a lead molecule, tested in cell culture and in C. elegans model of aging, and got extraordinary results that molecule extended the healthy lifespan of cells and of C. elegans. And very unusual results, and got a lot of interest from people. But it's an early days, and we needed to get more data, more evidence, and also we needed to look at the chemistry around that sort of lead or probe molecule, we call it. And this is where O2h has come in. The company got a grant, and then I joined the company to raise seed investment for the company, and O2h Kickstarter award has really facilitated really good use of that investment. So instead of having just a handful of molecules that we could have afforded to make, we've now got about 80 molecules that we can screen. We're exploring a wide chemical space so that we can then generate strong IP by the end of the year, that we can then go out and raise the next investment round for it. So we've kind of been bootstrapped with a small amount of seed funding and the grant funding from Innovate UK to really get the evidence that that pathway is instrumental in aging, and then get the IP around the molecules in that pathway.
So I'm just going to bridge into the sort of the funding landscape somewhat, because the anti-aging space may attract a different type of investor. So a few questions here. Are you seeing the big pharma taking an interest in this space, or do you think it's something that they haven't pushed, have a therapeutic area focus on, or haven't really pushed their buttons on? Is it more sort of the family offices that are still looking at this space, or do you think it's becoming a bit more mainstream, I would say? So really a question about where you might go for your funding and collaboration.
Yeah, well, I think that the jury's out still with aging in terms of how to exploit it, because aging is not an indication, so you can't actually get drugs for aging. You need to go through the normal process of working towards specific indications, and we are looking at what indications, because our technology could be used for a number of different indications. So what are the best indications to go for, and pharma will be factored into that. What indications are they most interested in? Where can we generate the evidence? I think there's because it's the biology of aging is getting much better understood, and it's a great way of getting into new targets for treating diseases of the elderly. Pharma are definitely looking at it very closely, and many companies are being invested by the VCs and angels. We're very early, so the angels have invested in our company, and I think they're seeing aging as a really great space that will follow on to the VCs and then pharma for the licensing. But I actually think pharma licensing, they just want a candidate molecule that's got a lot of evidence around it for a specific disease.
Thanks. So Beth, I mean, in the US, I mean, in the UK, the funding landscape is not amazing, but it's never, you know, in a way, companies in the UK have always been fairly frugal in the way that they spend their money, and they've not really relied on the big slugs of cash with very high burn rates. So I'd say the execution cost in the UK is probably lower, and the burn rates of most biotechs have been more managed in a way. So although the funding landscape is probably difficult, you know, it's not having the sort of the downside impact that I think is happening in the US. I may have got that completely wrong. So maybe you can give me you know, on the ground what you're seeing in the West Coast.
Yeah, so I would say, you know, we were in the winter 22 batch of Y Combinator, and we're very grateful for their investment and their guidance. And then by the time we got to demo day, March 22, sort of the funding had already started a downturn. So it's been pretty challenging over the past year. I think, you know, there are groups that are getting sort of fairly good chunks of money, but I think there are a lot who are not. I think what I'm also seeing is a number of the biotechs are really downsizing or even going virtual, depending on what stage they're at, in order to extend the runway. And it seems like VCs are making sure that their current investments are getting the funding they need, and maybe pulling back a bit on some of the funding in new companies. That said, I think people are still talking. And so I know a lot of people out there who are, you know, certainly getting meetings and discussing, but it seems like even for a Series A, it's taking a bit longer for that to all come together. I've heard at a number of panels I've been to that the Series B is kind of harder now. But this is sort of what I'm seeing. But of course, there is money.
I've heard that about the Series B too, but in our game, it doesn't compute because, you know, at a Series B, they should be either in the clinic or very close to the clinic. And you've almost got some kind of proof of concept data, and you're quite close to, you know,
Right.
building or developing. So in a way, and I hear the same thing, but I'm not sure why that'd be. Maybe it's that the valuations have come down, and the current investors maybe not willing to accept a lower valuation given all the value that they've, you know, and the funding they put into it. So that could be it. But I've heard the same thing.
It could be, and I've also heard for Series A that, you know, there's an emphasis in being able to put the Series A where the milestone is a clinical endpoint, rather than some of the Series A's that kind of get you to, say, IND approval. That's what I've heard from some as well. So this is just what I hear. But we've been trying, you know, we've been raising a little bit of money since the Y Combinator money came in, but and we'll see. So my fingers are crossed, and I'm optimistic that I think if you have good data and something looks very promising, and we've worked hard to de-risk what we're doing to make it basically, you know, your standard small molecule effort, to the degree to which you find that terribly risky or not. So I'm kind of hopeful, and we'll see how that goes. So my observation and what I've been reading is that the funding is sort of coming back and picking up a bit. And
Yeah,
hopefully-
I had that feeling as well a few weeks back, but yesterday we had some, in the UK at least, we had some higher than expected inflation data, and there's chat that they're going to have to ramp up interest rates further, and so I don't know how that's going to affect things. So but until yesterday morning, I was like, okay, I think things are turning around, and we've probably peaked in terms of interest rates, or at least not far off it. I don't know now, but I think in the US it's probably going. The US has that sort of short, sharp, it's very fast to go up, but fast to go down, but also fast to go back up again as well. I think we sort of trickle up, trickle down in the UK. And but yeah, maybe Jason, you're laughing, maybe you can
yeah, well, I mean, I agree with everything you say, and I think some of the earlier comments, I think the IPO market sort of tanking in the US, I think has really hit those later stage companies. And so to your point, I think valuations have come right down. And I think there are a lot of VCs with either money sunk in that they can't get out or need to refocus. But I agree. I think Series B is where it's a really tough place. I guess I was slight smugness that comes from having a bit of runway yet before I need to go out and sort of raise money. But I was also struck by your point about we're quite a parsimonious group as an entity in the UK. I think one of the things that we've sort of really done, and I know talking to colleagues at other companies we've done, is I think to try and look at trying to work in things like collaborations, partnerships, etc., as a way of trying to extend your runway. And that's a really effective way. I mean, I talk about it as money, and I think that on one level, as a biotech CEO, you're in a really weird place. You've got to be two incompatible things. At one level, you have to be this visionary philosopher, your head in the clouds, seeing this promised land. But on the other side, you've got to be this sort of like penny pinching accountant, counting every single penny from, and how do you get the photocopier to work? There are real ends of the spectrum. And when you get, sort of money from a partnership or collaboration, that is incredibly helpful. There's a real deep breath of, okay, we got some money to do something. But surprisingly, as we've sort of gone through some of these, the thing I've really, really found is that you actually value other stuff as well. You get this diversity of thought. And every time you talk to a pharma company or the like, you learn something. And every pharma company will be focused on one or two key things. And it's usually because they've been burnt in the past or whatever it is. But you're sort of tapping into this whole institutional knowledge of years in a certain area. And you think, right, that is a nugget, a piece of gold to sort of go away from. But you get access to talent, you get different people's thoughts. And you can get experiments, you can get models, you can even get samples. You can't get.
And what I like about our industry, it is genuine, is that people, they're so focused on, obviously they want to make their company successful, raise money, but they also, we're very lucky that we have one eye on the patients. We can see on the other respect, and we're always trying to work collectively. I felt this as a group to, even if we can help a colleague, even if they're in a competitive space, you will try to be supportive and helpful to the extent you can be within the refinement of the walls of your company to ensure that you do the right thing by your own group of people. But people are always helpful to share information. They'll make time. If there's something they did in a past research group and they've got that knowledge, they've taken it with them, they will make it their point to say, I've got something that I've worked on that target in the past. I know some stuff. Give me a call, and I'm happy to share what I know. And in our industry, I think you have this global group of people like you guys are sharing all your ideas on the call today, who are happy to give back, to share, and to make sure that other people learn from the mistakes that they may have made, or they may know other people have made. And that that scientific kind of body of information data is so valuable globally. And I think that as an industry, COVID was the biggest example of that, where everyone was just sharing everything they knew around the space. Obviously, there was something greater at stake there. But I think even on all the things that we work on individually, people are just willing to contribute, share. And I've always felt that. But we're very lucky to work in the sector for those reasons. But Neil, maybe you've had the BII behind you. Obviously it's a grand institute, and they have huge connections into other funding networks as well. I mean, and I presume that you are now on the road to try to raise funding. How are you finding it in the UK, or are you going globally? Are you going out to bio this year?
So yeah, we've got a number of strands there. So the BII are very helpful in that they're connected to many venture cap companies and pharma companies and so on, and they can arrange opportunities for you to kind of meet them and give a pitch and discuss your science. So that's really helpful. Part of our strategy is also to reach out to big pharma. So we've got some interesting conversations ongoing at the moment with big pharma. So that could be one route for us.
And we really appreciate big pharma. I think that in a time where the venture group really were a little bit nervous about investing what they had, or they find it hard to raise new funding, I think the big pharma have really been very active. Maybe the valuations are more realistic, or the deal terms are more realistic now, but they have really, I feel, been more open and active in general. So I think it's something that, again, our industry is quite unique, that we've got these giants basically willing to sort of step in, and have always sort of been there to support smaller biotech. So I felt that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think pain is a difficult one as well, because on the one hand, there's a massive unmet medical need. I mean, it's, the costs are estimated in the trillions of dollars just in the US in terms of the problems with pain, but also the kind of addiction. 70,000 people died in 2021 in the US from overdoses from synthetic opioids. So, really is a huge unmet medical need. And yet, if you look at the funding that goes in from the VCs, you're looking at 200 million or something recently, compared to, say, 10 billion that went into oncology. So, yeah, there's something there where something we have to embrace and think about and work on. How do we deal with that? It's our multiple strand approach.
So Vid's very lucky that he can access two groups of investors. He's got the biotech investors and the tech investors. And so so it must have been easy for you, Vid, a few phone calls and people throwing the money at you. So, I mean, I know you're at the tail end of a sort of a seed round, but how did you find it? Was it hard going or fairly straightforward, really?
So it was definitely hard going last year, but I think we face. I guess the challenge that's exactly kind of summarized by you is that individual investors won't have the expertise of both sides. So it's about this kind of dance with biotech on one hand and tech investors on the other hand, who all don't have any real experience with the other side. So they're trying to get their due diligence done and get the confidence, get sufficient confidence. So getting all of that aligned is really the challenge. But the benefit is, as you say, that you have access to a larger pool.
We have run on to the 45 minutes, and it's just gone so quickly. And I just really want to appreciate all your time. I don't want to keep you longer because I know you've got busy things to do. So thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations on being Kickstarter award winners. Thank you again for coming on to this ChaiTime and talking about those experiences as well in generally a positive way, which is nice to hear. And for people who are watching this or others, as I mentioned, we're looking for golden partners. We're going to sign on 50 golden partners. There'll be anyone in the world, really. So global institutes, venture capitalists in Boston, San Francisco, San Diego, anywhere where we're sort of starting up therapeutic focused companies where they could benefit from a Kickstarter award. We're looking to assign 50 golden partners, these sort of fast track awards where they can recommend them to our committee for a Kickstarter. And it should be a very simple, straightforward process. We're just looking to really push our Kickstarter awards out to those that can benefit from them the most. So on that note, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll speak soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.